about?
Well, digital and virtual, I don't think we can have a conversation about that without bringing that to the forefront. Before I get into Cargill, I was on a webinar yesterday related to an association that I participate actively in. And the statement was made, the progress that we've made in digital and virtual advancements over the past 10 months would have taken us 10 years without the pandemic. So think about that for a moment. We have accelerated our interactions, and we're still all learning, right? I mean, my team frequently is, are you on mute? Take yourself off mute, right? We're still learning, but we've advanced significantly. And, we all also, well, it's a common theme, right? Just want to go back to normal. I just want to go back to normal. When we go back, though, I don't think it's going to look the same, because if you think through for a moment that if that statement is true, we've advanced 10 years over the past 10 months, there's going to be a new normal as we come through this pandemic. So digital and virtual will be the biggest changes, I think, just as a whole, from an industry perspective and a global perspective that we've all experienced. Specific to Cargill, we're on a 3-year transformation journey that includes implementing an integrated operating model. So it's a significant cultural change for us, as well as structural change. From a for supply chain, or as we refer to it, we speak of it as BOSC, or Business Operations and Supply Chain. And we're about to kick off a BOSC 2.0 strategy within Cargill, which has been aligned to our recent Cargill 2025 strategy that was just announced. So there's a lot, in short, really, many of the strategic choices are still to be made. But I anticipate that it'll be a combination of building new capabilities and refining our current processes through technology, through our talent. From a technology perspective, again, I would anticipate that we're going to continue to expand in areas of AI, supply chain visibility, and then the digitalization of supply chain, which is going to again, we'll be able to leverage what we've all learned through these past 10 months of the pandemic.
Great, thank you. I just want to see, did Renee sort out, do we have Renee?
I think she was going to try to log back in.
Okay, or maybe one of us can FaceTime her from Redwood, and we can hold up the FaceTime. That's how I've seen it done in other webinars when there's tech challenges. I'll go to Jill then,
Sure.
Great. We can talk unprecedented.
Yes,
was your word. So maybe we can start there and what that means and for the industry and your organization.
Yeah, no, that's great. It's probably a word that resonates with everybody before I even explain it. But as I was thinking about this panel and thinking about, other crises that I've been through, I've been in the workforce for about 30 years. I started my career in the early 90s recession, then we had the dot-com bubble, we had the 9/11 attacks, the Great Recession. So there have been other events. And in each of those, I remember, kind of a moment when things seemed really dark and geez, how bad is this going to get? And are we ever going to bounce back? And in each of those, we did bounce back. And honestly, I didn't notice too many sort of major shifts or changes afterwards. We sort of got through it and got back to normal, quote unquote. Maybe 9/11 being an exception, where I think we never felt quite safe again after that. But certainly economically fully recovered. This one is unprecedented. I don't think we're going back to where we were. And I was thinking about why is this so different? It's pretty amazing that it's so global. Literally every person on the planet has been impacted. Versus other crises which are more regional. It's health related, so that's makes it more scary and more unusual. And it's forced us to all change our habits, which is pretty incredible. In an economic downturn, you sort of tighten your belt and you may shop less or what have you. This has, literally personally and professionally, we're all doing things differently. And, I've read that you form new habits on average in 60 days. And at sort of the long end of the spectrum, it can take 250 days to form a new habit. And, we're kind of at that time now, unfortunately. I think we're around 250 days into this crisis and we're still going. So I think we're going to form new habits, both professionally and personally. Some of them, Jackie spoke to in terms of, technology use or work from home and our agility. So I don't think it's all bad. I mean, I do think there's going to be some negative repercussions that are more permanent or certainly lasting. But I think there's going to be a number of positives from a business standpoint where businesses have been agile and can take those learnings even post-COVID to continue, using technology and being more effective. And then personally, I think we've all built resilience, during this time. We've, for good or for bad, we've been reconnected with our family unit, and I think there's a lot of good from that. So, but sort of in summary, this is unprecedented and different, I think, than the others. And it'll be interesting to see, and we just need to take the positives and make the most of them.
Yeah, I love that. So on you personally, you have been, I mean, you are someone that and I think many women in finance really admire. And you came up through the financial sector, which not a lot of women. You landed in the logistics industry. How would you compare and contrast the two? And I guess to say it, I mean, what's going on? Like, are we making any progress? I guess is
Oh boy. Yeah, being in private equity and investing in logistics, it is interesting because, as you say, both are sorely underrepresented. Coming into this webinar, I saw the statistics around, how many women are in logistics. And if I think about the portfolio, our Greenbrier's portfolio companies in logistics, at the manager level, about 15 or 20% of the jobs are represented by women. And if I look at the C-suite, out of 6 or 8 people, 1 or 2 are women, and it's similar in private equity. I mean, I think 10% of senior roles are filled by women in private equity, and it's a couple of percent are sort of owners of a firm or a managing partner. So I don't see a lot of women in my interactions, and sadly, I kind of get used to it because, as you say, from back, and I majored in finance in college, and I was probably one of 3 or one of 4 in the class, and investment banking was similar. So it's a little bit, I think, you tend to hire people that look and feel like you, and so I think men hire men, and then you end up with industries like private equity where they're not well suited to have a family, as an example. I mean, if you have to travel for your job, it's pretty hard to have a family. So it is a big problem. I think I do think there's significantly more awareness about it now, which is great. And I really applaud Redwood for doing, this event, and for Dress for Success for, what they do, for women. So I think it's better, but it's not moving rapidly enough. I'm really impressed to hear the statistics at Redwood just year over year. That's terrific. I have to say I don't think we're seeing that in our companies, but it certainly starts with conversations like this and just awareness. I don't think there's malicious intent. I think it's we got to be more proactive and thoughtful about it. But it goes all the way back down to the candidates. I know for our firm, hiring for our firm, we always have an eye out towards diversity. I mean, diversity makes for better decision making. Like, there's no question about that. But we probably, if we interviewed, this is on the, for young people joining our firm, it's probably 1 woman out of 20 candidates. So it's not as if we have, half the candidates are women and half are men. It's really, there's a route that goes all the way back to who's choosing to get into, these fields. I guess logistics is a bit better on that standpoint, because if I look at total employees across our logistics portfolio companies, it's not 50-50, but it's, there's probably 35%, 40% women. So there's more of a pool at the junior level. and then we lose it as we go up the funnel, which again is partially like if you actually want a life in addition to your job, it can be hard to do that. So those are a couple of comments.
It's interesting. Well, we're going to talk more about that in a bit. Pivoting to portfolio companies and all the change that's happening, there's probably accelerated growth and good habits, which you just talked about. Any common themes you're seeing across Uber Freight, LaserShip, Seco, BDP International that you can share, we can learn from?
Yeah, two big ones I was going to mention but I honestly, I'm sure this audience and my fellow panelists are very aware of these. Jackie mentioned one of them, which is just digital. There was a push in logistics towards digital pre-COVID that we were all very aware of. But I think what's interesting is COVID has clearly accelerated that. We, again, back to the, literally, we don't want human contact. I don't want to touch something that someone else just touched. So the idea of paper in a transaction, which we were already working on eliminating, I think by out of necessity, interesting, constituents, whether it be regulators, carriers, shippers, the 3PLs are all been kind of forced to think about, okay, well, I guess I got to really take time and figure out how I can use digital, use automation to eliminate steps. We recently invested in Uber Freight. We see the truck brokerage segment as one that's going to consolidate around players with scale and using technology. Frankly, Redwood being one of those. I mean, players like Redwood and Uber Freight who are investing in technology and ahead of the curve on that regard, we think are going to be the winners. At Seco and LaserShip, the second trend that we're seeing, which again is, I know is kind of an obvious one, but it is pretty amazing, is e-commerce. I mean, we're the level of e-commerce penetration has accelerated something like 5 years. We had been sort of moving on a curve of 1 or 2% penetration of online shopping each year for the last number of years, and that's pulled forward significantly. So at both those businesses, volumes are up tremendously, and we kind of were cautious. Well, as the economy reopens and stores reopen, is that going to pull back? And there has been very little pullback. I mean, I think there's certain verticals that maybe there'll be some pullback, but I think for the most part, our volumes are remain up, and we have shippers asking us, for capacity and help that we can't support right now, but that we're going to bring online next year. So it's pretty extraordinary. The last little anecdote I wanted to mention back on digital are our global freight forwarder, BDP, which has an industrial focus. They have operations in 40 countries. There's some countries like Brazil is the one that it was kind of interesting that uses paper like they were in the 18th century. So it's that there were just parts of the transaction where we had to keep paper and hold paper, and literally, in March, April, it was like, do you want the shipment or not? You can't, you got to change the rules. So I think that's encouraging. I think that's all going to lead to, progress and efficiencies, save shippers money, and provide better service, frankly, because there's less room for error. So those are some of the trends, which again, I know are kind of obvious because we're all seeing it, but I can say from a data perspective, we're definitely seeing it in our companies.
Great, thanks for sharing. I think Renee's on. I have to laugh a little bit because your word is technology.
I'm laughing too. Can you hear me now? Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. Thumbs up. We are there. So, I'm having the same laugh, Marissa. I'm like, hey, I choose the word, but this is the point. I've been on 100 Zoom calls, and of course, today on a panel is the time it chooses to fail me, but all is good now. So, using the word technology, the reason I chose it, and I think all of us are talking about that in each of our answers, is so much has happened in the last couple of years, and it continues to accelerate. And when you think about that, it's across the board. It's for brokers, it's for shippers, it's for carriers. Everybody is advancing with technology. And, it's not just good enough to have track and trace. Now you need, predictive analytics. Are we going to be late? All those things. The other piece, when I think about shippers, there's so much shippers are doing just to change the game, in the way they're using technology, and those advancements are really critical to help them continue to be ahead of the game. Jill, you were just talking about e-commerce and digital. Those are big items for all of the shippers to navigate. And when you think about e-commerce, the one thing I always say is there's 2 touch points for many customers that used to be just B2B that are now more B2C. And I use Macy's as an example. You know, this is a women's a network panel. So I thought, you know, why not use Macy's as a good example? But you used to go to the store, you would shop, you would pick out things. Now you're going to their website and you're having those things delivered. So if you think about it, there's really 2 touch points for a lot of these big companies that are in the e-commerce world. And one is order entry when you're ordering on their website, and the other is the experience with when it's delivered. So logistics has become more important than ever. And a lot of, you know, that last mile, parcel, all those products and those logistics items are now critical in how companies need to think about what they're doing. So, you know, text my word, and hopefully technology will serve me well on the rest of the call and be able to continue talking.
Amazing. So I have to say, when I was reading about you, I had Katharine Graham vibes, because who's a woman that I really admire. And I recommend her autobiography for viewers. She ran the Washington Post. She was the first woman CEO in the Fortune 500. So she, and just so happened to do a lot of complex acquisitions. So we're going to get into that. And I like to say it's nice that she also outperformed her peers and returned like 20% compounded annual returns for 20 plus years. She was sort of like in the top and really interesting, and was alone in her peer set, but did really well and managed these acquisitions. So you came up through several top finance roles, and you also had to do that, managing organizations and really complicated transactions. And so would love if you can just talk about that a little bit and share with the audience.
Sure. Thank you, Marissa. In terms of a background, my background is varied. So I have finance, I have technology, Six Sigma, and those have really served me well in my career. I actually started my career at Honeywell in technology. So it was a great foundation for me to really understand and learn what technology can do for you. And then, of course, Honeywell was big in Six Sigma and Lean. So that skill around, you know, how do you improve a process? How do you make it more effective and efficient? Those were important skills for me to pick up. So it helped me in my career. It helped me at Honeywell. It helped me in everything else that I did, you know, after Honeywell to keep using those skills. And you asked about acquisitions, and they can be, and they are very complex. The one thing I think everybody knows about, Marissa, in particular, you know, and Jill, you guys specialize in this area as well. You know, the financials are something that's critical. You have to understand the financial statements. You have to be able to look at add backs and synergies and all those things. And what will the combined company look like? I think that's a given, and it can be very complicated, and you have to get really good at understanding those. And you become good as you look at, you know, multiple companies, and certainly you learn through those experiences. But I think what's equally important are 2 other aspects, and one is the strategic fit. So is this a consolidation play where you're, you know, bringing it into the network and you're using your size and your scale? Or is it something that will offer a new product or a service to what you're doing? I think that's important. And then lastly, I would say culture and people, probably the most underestimated aspect of the business. You need that cultural fit, and it's a big deal. And in the people side of it, you need to understand like how the people come together. That integration part after you buy the company is the most critical and really deemed success. So you have to spend that time up front thinking about, is this a good fit? How will it work within the organization? So I think those have been some of the bigger items. I think that it's complicated, but yet comes down to people and culture is a differentiator.
Yeah, I love that. I love your necklace. I'm going to move on to my colleague, Nicole in Chicago, who has a very big brain and I enjoy working with very much. Nicole, what's the dynamic? And tell us, what's going on at Redwood?
Sure. So I chose dynamic because the industry is constantly changing and progressing. And there's a lot of new energy in the space that is helping drive advancements in adoption of technology to improve the performance across supply chains. So this is similar to what's going on at Redwood right now as well. So technology and innovation have always been a part of Redwood's DNA from the earlier days. And we're evolving our Redwood Connect platform to digitize our internal operations. And I find that exciting because historically there was limited number of options for technology and solutions across the logistics industry. So you only had one or two that you could look at and you could utilize. Now with technology and being able to really take a step back and say, how would we do this different if we could do it starting today? Let's forget about the past and let's start with a clean slate. And how would we design our operations? And how would we provide visibility to our customers if we just got to start over? And I think that's why the industry is so dynamic right now, is having so many options to be able to solve your problems and provide new and exciting opportunities for your customers.
Great. So you worked in a number of orgs in the space, including XPO. How does Redwood compare? I mean, you gave some great stats, I guess, earlier, but what can you share also about Redwood's plans post-COVID?
Sure. So I think Redwood is different because the company has been built with people that are passionate about logistics. They have careers that they've built throughout the logistics industry, and they're very passionate about what they do every day. And you can feel that the second you walk in the door here. It's just the passion and wanting to grow the business as well as the industry. So early on, that passion led to understanding that to be successful at Redwood, the company needed a robust integration solution that would be able to enable the company to grow and scale quickly. And that integration solution now, it's called Redwood Connect, was designed and is built, and it now fuels the entire organization with data that drives visibility and automation while streamlining the integration process. So I think having that vision up front and really understanding what was needed to successfully build a logistics company was one of the winning factors for Redwood. So post-COVID, we've been operating pretty much business as usual during COVID. We had a bit of a setback in March when we had to figure out how to get everyone remote extremely fast. And we were able to accomplish that in a couple of weeks. And that was everybody across the organization pitching in and making sure we could get our employees home successfully. So since we took the minor step back in March, we've still been focusing on investing in our teams, building our technology and our solutions to support our customers and our aggressive goals. So I think I echo what everybody else is saying. I mean, it'll be nice to get past COVID. There will be a different normal past COVID, but I think we're all extremely excited to be able to get back together again at some point and be able to continue to grow that passion across the company.
Yeah, I just want to echo the passion. I got a number of text messages from the Redwood guys saying, thanks so much. I'm so excited for the panel tomorrow, Women in Logistics. I thought that was really nice, Tim and Todd. And Mark has really made an effort, credit to him, to get women on the board, make sure that the women in management ranks that they're growing. And that's why I think the stats look the way they do. So we're going to talk now about women in technology. I would be curious to hear your perspective. I heard something interesting the other day. My friend, we were looking at a deal together, and I'm an investor, so the management team was all male. And she said, don't take the meeting. And I said, well, why not? Can't we help? She said, no, I think that if we don't take the meeting and they don't get the meeting and they don't get in the room, it forces action earlier. I thought that was very, very interesting. I had not viewed it that way, and I can certainly understand that vantage point. So would be very curious to hear what you think is happening with women, specifically in technology, how it's changing, and then we're going to get into a little bit of preparedness because of the org that we're sponsoring today, and women preparedness, and what we can do to help, to borrow from Emily, pull other people into the room. So I'll start with you, Nicole, since we're on you.
Sure, thank you. So I've seen a positive momentum in creating STEM and other programs to help attract more women into the field. I think it's the more research, and as you start to drill down into it, is you need to start giving that visibility earlier, as early as you possibly can, like going into children with middle school, high school, college, and making them understand that they're welcome in technology and there are roles that they can be successful in. So I think getting to them at the younger ages has been helping. I also think having programs like today helps build awareness and ultimately helps everyone to start to think about what they can do to help bring more women into technology. And I'm very similar with a lot of the panelists, and I started in finance as well. So I think as companies and leadership teams are more open to individuals having different backgrounds, maybe not just technology, but being able to bring different skill sets to the table is going to be able to open up that much more opportunity for women in technology as they grow. And I've been very fortunate to be able to make the move between the different functional groups throughout my career. And I think that the key thing, and it's very similar to what you were just talking about, Marissa, is that it's visibility. So you want to be in a room or around people that are very similar to you, or you feel comfortable around. And I think as we see more women in technology roles and in leadership roles, that will encourage the younger generations to know that they can be successful in those roles too, and will have the courage to be able to go after those roles.
Yeah, I think that's great. I'm curious to hear from others. We can go around. I would love to start with Jackie. I mean, you were the only woman in the room for a long time, and I one of the things that I thought about with this panel, I love Dress for Success. I think the whole org, getting women preparedness and the confidence to do things. I mean, we saw it in the video. It's so important, but also self-motivation and how we think about these things when you don't really have someone to necessarily learn that in your own industry. So I had this idea to ask, if you, the younger version of yourself early in your career, if you were to listen to this Zoom, what you'd want to hear from the panelists, and also, what you think we can do, or what you're doing maybe to pull other women into the room with you. And I'd love to start with Jackie.
Thanks, Marissa. So when I think about, what would I want to hear? Obviously, hearing people's journeys and hearing how others have, essentially created success in their careers and seized on different opportunities and the different paths that people took. So without a doubt, just all the stories that everyone has shared, whether it was, Jill or Nicole or Renee and yourself, understanding how did you, tackle the different challenges and navigate your career. But then I also, kind of what were those moments that helped either give you the motivation you needed or that inspired you to keep going. And so the message I often share, because I have a good friend that's in HR, and she always tells me, men are not afraid to ask for something before they deserve it, right? And so we as women, when we go into, whether it's a discussion on compensation or a discussion on an opportunity, we believe we need to earn all of that, right? And so one thing I want to share with this group is the advice that my father always gave me. And he said, Jackie, on every new role or opportunity you go after, you only need to know 25% of it. You'll learn the rest. And that was very, very freeing, right? Oh, you mean I don't have to go in on day one and be perfect? I don't have to know absolutely everything that I'm going to do when I walk into the door. It's like, nope, just need to know 25% of it and be confident and demonstrate that you will be able to figure out the rest of it, and you're going to be able to deliver results. That has helped me. I mean, he probably told me that when I was, 20 some years old, and I've never forgotten it. And I still remember my college graduation gift from my dad was a picture of a duck. And it said, always behave like a duck, stay calm and unruffled on the surface, and paddle like the devil beneath. And it's just those inspirational little words that you remember that keep you going. And so also I want to reflect a little bit back on some of the dialogue you had about women in logistics and being the only woman in the room. And it's the unconscious biases. And Jill mentioned, the diversity that we have in our teams. And it's not only diversity in gender and background, but it's also diversity in thought. So because somebody else mentioned, you like to hire people that are similar to you, and we do tend to hire individuals that have the same thinking processes as us. So it's diversity in thought as well as all the other characteristics of diversity that we're familiar with. And so what I also want to share with you is, like many, I started my career in my early 20s. And when I joined the railroad, my customers and my peers at the time were all my dad's age. So I had an age diversity, right? Or an age bias, you could say. And they were all my 20 years my senior. And so not only was I a woman, but I was, substantially younger. And to me, that was the bigger hurdle and the bigger challenge than the fact that I was a woman. And so working through that and gaining people's gaining credibility and gaining people's respect was really critical throughout my career. And so kind of my advice to others, right, is, have that strong self-confidence. Just understand that we typically create our own barriers. And so if you have this attitude of I can figure this out and I can go after it, it's gonna carry you far. Some of the things that I continue to try to do, and even Cargill more broadly, when we're on panels, this one's easy because it's all women, but we do want to make sure there's diversity on the panels that we accept. So that's kind of along your lines, Marissa, of we're not going to accept that meeting. Yeah. Stand up and speak out and have a requirement to have diversity. So that's something Cargill has done. Something personally, I continue to mentor early career professionals, and I think it was Jill that indicated, we have good, strong women at more of our early professional type roles, but then in that middle management level, we tend to reduce our numbers in women, and I think it is a challenge to figure out, how do you balance being a parent if you choose to have children, and how do you balance that parent and work? And I think anyone that has children that are, well, young or school age, quite frankly, right now through these past 10 months has probably been stretched and challenged beyond their even most unrealistic imagination. And so you look at all of that, and how do we deal with that, and how do we deal with those stressors? And maybe through this, we'll even learn how to more effectively permit women and men, because I do see that some of those same stresses on our male employees, figure out how do we have a better work-life balance. And that doesn't mean equal. It's how do we integrate our lives to include our careers and our families. And hopefully that's something that we'll learn through this pandemic, and that will help us be able to propel and encourage more women to be able to be more effective and have good, strong careers even during that middle phase of their life.
Great. I had a friend say she refused to go on any more manels. I thought that was really funny. So I would like to also hear from Renee and Jill. I think we have enough time, so maybe we'll start with Renee.
Sure. In terms of advice that I would give to women now would be to go after it. I mean, that's something I wish that I had known early in my career. And, as we were preparing for this panel, we spoke about some of the differences. Just these are trends I've seen over the years of managing teams. The men will often come to you and say, I'm working on my career. I'd really like to get to this next role. How can I do that? I'd love your advice and your help, which is great, by the way. And I've worked with so many talented men. And it's surprising sometimes, though, they might be 9 months into the role and they're looking for that advice. As I was preparing for the panel, I was trying to think of occasions where women on the team have done that. And I really can think of almost just a couple. And it's been the other way where I've actually had to tap a woman on the shoulder and say, hey, a role has come up. I think you would be amazing for this. And if there's, the women on this call that are listening, you know who you are. And many of them have said, oh, there's 5 requirements. I have 4 of the 5, or I just don't think I'm ready. Or my favorite, I've been in this role for 2 or 3 years. I still have more to do. I'm not ready for that next challenge. And for the ones that went on and took it, some of the most amazing, talented women knocked it out of the park. So I really encourage you, take that extra step, go to your leaders and ask them, what am I doing well? What do I need to work on? And go after those roles. Jackie, I loved your analogy of, your dad telling you, 25% of it. I think, and you'll learn the rest. I think that the women that I speak to expect to know everything. And I know even if I've had that challenge as you go into a new role, thinking, gosh, I don't know everything. Well, that's why you're surrounded by fantastic teams and you work together, because together you can make it work. And that's what I would tell women.
Great. Thank you so much. I think we have running out of time, but Jill, what would you add to that? How would you?
Yeah, boy, those are really fantastic comments. So I'm inspired by the comments here. I guess I just add, and it's related, I think, to those comments, like confidence. And that's something I've had to work on throughout my career. And I've gotten some advice around, well, first of all, over prepare. Again, this just works for me. But if I'm not sure about myself, then I'll learn the material like 3 times over. I'll practice, I'll rehearse, and that gives me confidence. A shout out to Dress for Success. I had a coach, probably, I don't know, a long time ago, who was helping me kind of develop my presence. I'm an introvert, I'm shy, I really don't like public speaking. And fortunately, my bosses at the time, all guys, said like, hey, you gotta figure out, like, when you walk in the room, like how you own it, how you're perceived. And so one of the things the coach said is basically dress for success, like fill out your killer outfit, put the makeup on, do your hair, like make yourself feel like, amazing. And that will psychologically give you confidence, and you'll kill it in the meeting. So I think that Dress for Success is, again, just such a wonderful organization. And fortunately, I was able to purchase my own clothes. But for people who, need that at that point in their life, it's just a wonderful organization. So maybe that's a good way to end it.
Yeah.
Marissa, I don't know if you shared your story, but it's so inspiring. So maybe I missed it when I was out, but amazing. Agreed.
I was as a young teen mom, single mom. My mom, I think, is on this call, so I want to acknowledge her efforts in keeping my head above water. But I did use a lot of government assistance and programs that helped me do, look, when you're young and you're going on job interviews and you look different from everybody around you and you have holes in your clothes or things, there's certain things that you can do and certain organizations that you rely on to help you move ahead. And I did that. So when I saw and used many of Catholic charities, many of them, and my mom obviously encouraged me to go to Yale and continue and push ahead. And I did every odd job, telemarketing, Avon sales lady. I mean, I did everything and not well, I would add. But I think these organizations like Dress for Success are so important. It's just so psychologically important to feel good. And you don't know that people only know, most people don't know that there's buffoonery at all levels and people kind of only know 25% of the role and they can learn it. And, you know, even Jill, like I'm so inspired because you're in a performance-based industry. So before you have you've got performance, but before you get that, what women can do to really move ahead, because it's very easy for colleagues to say, hey, you know, what's your scorecard? Well, it's like, I'm trying to build it. And so I think just being overall preparedness is great. And I did a little bit of that, and I leaned a lot on organizations like this. And at the time I was a little embarrassed about it, but I no longer am. So thank you so much to Redwood for pulling this together, and to all my colleagues at Redwood and the CI Capital guys who still encourage, I think, their colleagues in a really awesome way. And thank you to the panelists as well. I mean, an amazing group of women. I had so much fun being here, and I hope you did as well.
Thank you.
Yeah, you ladies were fabulous, honestly. Even through all these technical errors, people are texting us and emailing us. This is so great. This is so inspirational. So thank you guys. And thank you for being patient with us. Thank you for everyone who's just finally being able to get in. We were able to stream it through YouTube, luckily. So hopefully everyone has been able to see you guys and all the wonderful things you said. For me specifically, I think the things that I'm taking away from this, you know, follow your intuitions and be confident. Be open to the diversity of thought. I love that, by the way. And Renee's point, just go for it. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. And that's so many of the conversations that we have, you know, even men and women within our organization. Just go for it. Take the chance, see what happens. So you guys were awesome, and I really appreciate it. We're going to take a quick 5-minute break. And hopefully if you guys are able to stay with us, we'll hear from you soon.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Our world is enduring a pandemic unseen in centuries, and many people are suffering. But COVID-19 has disproportionately affected women in the workforce, from higher rates of job loss as compared to their male counterparts, in addition to doing double and triple duty at home, whether it's taking care of children or tending to elders. The impact of this global crisis on women is astounding. And that's why organizations like Dress for Success.
I was so bummed that I couldn't hear everything you said.
Today, I'm honored to talk to a few
I loved your dad's story.
of these amazing women via Zoom.
You there? I feel like we're still on there. Oh.
Who've agreed to share their stories with us.
I wanted to go back out to help others, and I had learned that I did not have COVID. I was okay. I made the decision to go back to work.
Tell me what you want people to know about Dress for Success.
Dress for Success wants you to succeed and to continue doing well. I'm a unique woman. Dress for Success helped me.
First of all, thank you so much for being a part of this. Talk to me about how this pandemic has affected your life and what things look like now for you.
I worked 120 days and the pandemic hit. And I was laid off.
Hi, Maria.
Hi, how are you?
Why don't you tell us a little bit about your journey with Dress for Success?
Unfortunately, I was moving to San Francisco, had experienced domestic violence, and looking for work. There is an organization that can help you provide with an outfit so you can start doing job search. When I found out that they don't only do the suiting of the clothing, they do other programs that were tailored also for women to grow in their professional careers.
Can you tell me some of your story of how this new world is affecting you?
For me and my son, like it has changed our lives, but I'm trying to just now learn how to live, like you said, in the new world.
Desme, Deborah, Maria, and all the women of Dress for Success from around the world need your support.
The mission of Dress for Success is to empower women to achieve economic independence by providing a network of support, professional attire, and develop tools to help women thrive in work and in life. That tells it all. I don't have to say anything else. And I'm living proof.
Dress for Success needs you to give whatever you can. No amount is too big, no amount is too small. Our women and their families rely on your generosity, now more than ever. Please visit dfsmovingforward.org to learn more.
Good morning and welcome back to those who are rejoining, and for those who are just able to get through, thank you for being patient with us and joining. We're going to have the panel brought up here in just a minute, but my name is Emily Weiser. I am the SVP of Integrated Sales, and if this is the second session for you guys, hopefully you got some really impactful things from that first one. The ladies were super inspirational. This second session is going to be a little bit different, right? So it's going to be an exciting panel of women again, but they're going to be sharing their own experiences on things like, navigating through work-life balance. Obviously, with the current pandemic, women are finding themselves having to choose or having to prioritize things in their lives on a daily basis. I know at least I am for sure. And so that's kind of causing them to leave the workplace. And specifically, obviously, in our industry, that's a really serious conversation. Luckily, Redwood's retention is doing really, really well this year. I think with the capabilities of, working remote and having some flexibility, it's been really great for us. So hopefully you'll get some great things out of this panel as well. So before we start, we're going to keep everyone muted again. Just the panel's going to be hopefully having no issues, no technical errors this time. We're going to do the Q&A at the end if we have time. So obviously, if you guys have questions, I know we weren't able to get to them the first round, but just put it in the little chat box and we will try to send out something afterwards to make sure we answer everyone's topics. We are, again, just another reminder, doing some fundraising for a super fabulous organization. I know you just saw another video. This organization does really exceptional things for women. So Redwood is going to make a gracious donation, but if you guys would like to donate yourselves, you can go to the site direct, or when the screen pops up at the end, you can make a donation on that QR bar. So let's hop right into our second panel. Elena, I see you. I'd like to introduce our moderator, Elena. She heads up our marketing team here at Redwood, and she obviously had a huge hand in planning this event. So thank you and good morning, ladies.
Good morning. Hopefully you can hear and see me well. Very excited to be here. What a wonderful panel just now, so inspirational. And so it will be a tough act to follow for us, but we'll do our best. Similar to how we started the first panel, I would like to first go around the room and ask our panelists to come up with one word, but this time the word that I would like to ask for is, what best describes your leadership style? And so with that, I will go around the Zoom and I will start by asking a question, but also giving you a little bit of a bio or introduction on our panelists. And first, I'd like to welcome Dima Adada. Dima is the founder and CEO of GetSet, an early stage startup offering an innovative dynamic scheduling platform that allows to effectively manage inventory at the dock door. Prior to founding Get Set, Dima spent 12 years at high-growth logistics companies, including Uber Freight and Coyote, where she held leadership roles across the strategy and sales functions. Dima, welcome to the panel. What would be your one word that best describes your leadership style?
Yeah, first, I would like to thank you and the Redwood team for organizing this panel and bringing attention to women in logistics. It was very inspiring to listen to the first panel and hearing about their experience. I'm honored to be a part of this panel, so thank you. I would describe my leadership style as a pace setter.
All right, thank you very much. Next, I would like to welcome Anita Rajan to the panel. Anita is the global logistics leader at RPM International and has been in the logistics industry for over 18 years. She started her career with Cummins Engines, where she earned her Lean Six Sigma Black Belt certification, and she served in various leadership roles in supply chain with two big box retailers, Target and Lowe's. Anita, welcome to the panel. What would be your one word to describe your leadership style?
Thank you, Elena, and thanks to the Redwood team as well to host this event, support Dress for Success. That's an organization I'm very familiar with from my days at Cummins. They've supported a lot of people that I know, so very thankful for what you guys are doing here. The one word I would say is transparent.
All right, thank you very much for this. Next, I would like to welcome Anya Schefers to the panel. Anya is a senior logistics manager at Leviton. Anya has over 14 years of experience in various supply chain roles, including Home Depot, and the start of her career in the consulting capacity. Anya, which word best describes how you perceive strong leadership?
Thank you, Elena. I just want to say, I also would like to say thanks to the Redwood team to have me be part of the panel and have the opportunity to talk to you today. And in terms of strong leadership and what I strive for on a daily basis, the one trait, 2 words, is emotional intelligence.
All right, that's a great one. And now we go to Patty Reeder. Patty, welcome to the panel. Patty is the logistics vice president and general manager at G3, a Gallo family-owned company. Patty began her career at G3 as the director of HR, but quickly transitioned to her current role in logistics. Prior to G3, Patty spent 7 years at Gallo Winery in finance, business analytics, sales, and operational planning roles. Patty, welcome. Thank you for joining us today. What would be your one word for your leadership style?
My word is invested. And it was fun hearing everyone else's words as well, because we didn't know what folks were going to say. So that was good. And thanks to everybody who's attending today, as well as the Redwood team.
Wonderful, thank you. So now let's do a deep dive. So we're gonna go back to Dima, my neighbor here in San Francisco Bay. Dima, do tell us, why did you choose your word and how does that describe your leadership style?
Yeah, I think it comes from being a part of this industry. It's very fast paced and quickly evolving from a technology perspective. I started with 2 very early stage companies that were leaders in technology and we had to always be on our feet and moving quickly. So I think that kind of moved me into a more of a fast-paced leadership role and driving my team to be, very, what's the word I was looking for, enthusiastic about solving problems and looking to think outside the box of what the role necessarily entails. So I believe that's why I feel strongly about being a pace setter and quick on my feet.
All right. Dima, you've spent some time at some prominent industry players earlier on with Coyote and then with Uber Freight, but now you're building something on your own. Can you share what prompted this new venture and how it is connected perhaps to the conversation we're having today?
Yeah. My background has always been in sales, very customer centric. I've worked closely with shippers from a strategic capacity over the course of my career. And, always experienced some of the same problems that seem to ail them, whether it be being able to perform from a service, a cost perspective, the agility to quickly find capacity or change network optimization, and working for companies that were, sourcing capacity. I really saw an opportunity with the technology we were developing to support that, but not to the extent where we could have a very large impact for any given shipper. So I identified an opportunity where we see, a lot of planning goes into the supply chain, where are we sourcing product, where are we sourcing capacity. But at the end of the day, it always seemed to fall apart when the driver or the facility had either fallen behind, ETAs, inventory, even labor shortages for the day. And I saw an opportunity to build a solution there that would really impact being able to improve the communication and being able to calibrate in real time those changes that are required. We see a ripple effect of almost 25% of capacity being held up due to dwell times at facilities, and GetSet is working to alleviate that and get more capacity on the road. I think both Uber and Coyote, were both innovators in technology, and that really allowed me to look at both, product development and opportunities for these shippers to get to where I'm at today.
All right. Now, sounds like you're working with a few remote teams in your new venture. Do you think remote work will bring more opportunities for women to join the workforce if they perhaps maybe weren't considering doing it before, or will it go the other way?
I'm glad you asked that. I think this year was very unique for businesses that had to move into a more remote model, and really, I think previously was looked at negatively for remote work. So I do think, one, we're going to see a lot more exciting opportunities that will be available in a remote or a hybrid aspect, both for independent contributors and even management roles. So there will be more opportunity for sure. But I do think that this year, having the opportunity to have worked remote both in a non-pandemic year and a pandemic year, I would like to say this year was very unique in the sense that it is not what remote work may always feel like. Some may have felt isolated or stretched very thin with families at home and having to manage more than you typically would. Me, myself, having my whole household home and finding a specific room to get an hour of quiet time on a call is, stressful. But I think that this will bring new opportunity for people to join the workforce. There will be less isolation, and I think more time for really focusing on the work that you're working on to become available. If you are organized, you can manage time, and you don't necessarily feel like you're going to miss out on the water cooler type conversations. Remote work is really a great opportunity to have that work-life balance. So I think that this was actually, a positive for the long run, having, more opportunity in the future.
That sounds very optimistic, and I tend to agree as well. So that's great to hear. Thank you so much, Dima. Now let's move to Anita in North Carolina. Anita, let's explore your word. Why did you choose it? How did it shape your leadership style?
Sure, yeah. Thank you, Elena. It's something that I've always believed in. Transparency is something that's very near and dear. It came from my young days. It came from watching my mom, for sure. I was fortunate amongst all my friends to have a working mom who had a career. She worked for the Indian government. She worked for the customs. Very male-dominated environment, but she stood up as a leader. She was very approachable, and it came because of her transparency, I think, reflecting today. She was very transparent. What you see is what you got from her. So sometimes I didn't like what I saw, but that's really how it started. And then as I got into the corporate world here, it came from one of my early mentors, Andy Yoder from Commons. He was my manager as well, and I was getting ready to walk into a manufacturing manager role where you manage shop floor employees. And it was not a union environment, but we operated almost like a union environment. And the one advice he gave me was, he said, say it like it is. if you don't say it like it is, they're going to find out. And that stuck with me all along. Until today, yeah, if people ask me for feedback or anything, it's just, I think, yeah, I just say it when I see things, and it has helped me build trust with my team. It has helped the teams that I've been associated with perform better, because feedback is important both ways. Recognition is important both ways. And the more we can share that, the more we can set clear expectations. I really think it'll take the teams to the next level overall.
I like it. Say it like it is.
Yeah.
I'll keep that one. Anita, the bulk of your professional career has been with big box retailers, right? Target, Lowe's. What was that experience like? What has it taught you? And what was it like to be perhaps the only woman in the room at times?
I would say a woman. I think both the companies, they've helped shape me into much more of a versatile woman leader, I would say. I found myself alone in the room more at one retailer versus the other. Every company is different, but we had a lot of opportunities. The first thing that comes to mind, even as a woman, was the infrastructure that was built for women around growth within those organizations. There was a natural feeling of, nurturing and support that came along. There was built-in mentorship programs, and there was an expectation at Target that within the first 18 months, you start planning for what your next role is going to be. It could be a lateral move, it could be a step down, step up, it doesn't matter. Go figure something out. And they really pushed the envelope on, you don't have to know everything to be in that role. My first transportation role, when I walked into Target, I didn't know how to spell transportation. So they gave me the confidence, and I was leading a transportation team there, and they just gave me the confidence, and they built me up to who I am today. And when I walked into Lowe's, and being a woman, I think there was a lot of leaders who were very supportive. They talked about servant leadership a lot at Lowe's, and it was about really managing down versus managing up. Was a big part of what some of the leadership and supply chain at Lowe's was. And they taught me to be a better human than being anything else. I think I owe it to both those companies. And I would say anybody early in your career, if you are thinking about walking into a big box retailer, keep your eyes open. It just takes, and go with an open heart too. It just, they take you to those next levels of leadership. And I'm really happy that I can bring all those to RPM today. And RPM is another company that I admire a lot. And I'm ever thankful for my recruiters who kind of convinced me that, I was ready for this next move with RPM. And thankful for the leadership that is continuing to help build me up along with the rest of the team. So yeah, overall, I think as a woman, it's really about what you pick and, just do those right things, pick the right advices from either it's a big box retail or manufacturing company, wherever you are. I would say just pick the right things and start blooming wherever you are planted. That makes a difference. And yeah, so I hope I answered your question, Elena.
Yes, you did. Yes, you did. When we chatted earlier, you mentioned something that really stuck with me. You were talking about how you're very active with minority empowerment, diversity initiatives, with Black Lives Matter movement, bringing spotlight to this issue for all of us. Can you share how are you using your voice and power to bring change on these issues to your personal and professional communities?
Absolutely. That's a great question, Elena. I'm a part of a nonprofit board here in Charlotte called Framework for Future. It is empowering minority youth leaders. And since its inception, I've been a part of it and learned more about the challenges that the minority teams face, which, I think I'm a minority in more than one way, so I can definitely talk more about it. And the Black Lives Matter is very, very close to home for me. while all this was happening, I was at a friend's house. They're more like family to me. And her son had just graduated from high school. He was going out, of course, to party with his friends, and he had his hoodie on, and the mom, they're another minority family like us. The fear in the mom's eyes was very real, Elena. Like, you know, she was scared. She's like, if a cop stops you, make sure you have your hands on your steering wheel, take your hoodie off, answer patiently. Like, and I could see myself in her a few years from now when my son grows up, right? So that kind of impacted me that evening. I've talked about it a lot after that. That evening definitely impacted me. While I think the riots were unwarranted, the peaceful protests, I think, was really crying out loud for something that really, it's still sad that only a part of the community still understands it. We really have a lot of work to do in that space. We have extensive educational sessions with the minority youth leaders today. And we really, I mean, are collaborating more with the International Minority Coalition team, which is all the different minority groups in the Charlotte area. We meet with them frequently. We are trying to educate. We're trying to bring the rest of the community that is not as fortunate like the rest of us here, bring them up, make them better, so we don't have to face some of these things in the future. So that's something that we are currently doing. I'm just going to quick stop with a one-shot inspirational story that I've heard growing up in India, but I was super elated when one of our key leaders here at RPM shared it as one of his beliefs as well. It is a story of a little girl who was walking along a beach, and you know, it was covered for thousands of miles with starfishes that were washed up in a storm. And whenever she came upon a starfish, she would pick it up and throw it back in the ocean. And there was an old man who was watching this up and said, little girl, there are too many of the starfish for you to make a difference. She immediately picked up another starfish. She threw it back in the sea and said, I made a difference on that one, did I not? So that can be that compounding effect on that small actions that we all make here as leaders, as women, as if there are men listening to the call, as men, as human beings. I think we can do a lot more for the community. I'm very proud of being a part of an organization that cares. RPM has done a lot for the local community in Ohio, as well as the pandemic hit, as the Black Lives Matter hit. Even before that, they work on a lot of things there as well, and I've offered to be a part of it. I'm still new to the, not relatively new, but you know, I'm still learning and trying to figure out how to professionally make an impact within the organization. But my ask for all the listeners here, don't ignore your low-income communities. Figure out how you go in and help them out as well. It's a very important part of who we are and what we owe to the country. So.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you for a great story. I'm sure it will stick in my mind and everybody's mind. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now we're going to move to Anya in the great state of New York. Anya, emotional intelligence, huh? Care to share more? Why that phrase, and what does it mean for your leadership style?
Oh, sure, Elena. So for me, emotional intelligence means self-awareness and self-regulation. It's staying calm in the face of challenges. So for example, when you walk into a boardroom and it's all men and you may be the most junior person there, it's staying calm, confident, presenting data, and really driving the outcome that that you desire. It's continuing to show information and show it in a way with confidence and calmness that can get you the outcome you want. It's also empathy. For example, one engagement I was recently involved in is working with an operations manager overseas. And I walked around my Melville office and just kind of got some feedback on this manager. And you know, the talk that I got is, oh, well, he's difficult. He doesn't like change. Good luck. And you know what I did? The first thing I did is visit him on site and listen to him, listen to his concerns, document his processes, and reiterate over and over again that we're not there to make a change necessarily. We're just there to quantify operational activities that are happening. And then back home in Melville, I spent several months working closely with him, quantifying those activities and presenting possibilities that he could utilize. And you know what? After those months, the outcome was he changed, and we had a positive ROI, and we were able to reduce cost while maintaining service. So it's that kind of empathy and understanding where people are coming from without, not being a bull in the china shop, that can get you results. To me, it's also social skills. I spend a lot of my time negotiating. I negotiate with logistics partners. I negotiate with carrier suppliers, and really internally, I negotiate a lot with different business leaders across the organization and different business groups. And you really have to have good social skills to overcome the resistance and bring about change. So that's, I think, what leadership is to me.
That's very inspiring. Thank you. Now, you've been lucky to be exposed to corporate cultures quite in a span of verticals, right? From L'Oreal Cosmetics to Home Depot. I'm sure that's quite a change. Have you noticed, though, any commonalities or disparities, if you want to mention, in light of our discussion today, right? And what were maybe some lessons learned from these cultures?
So I would say the one commonality I noticed across the different corporate cultures is the need to be able to work well with others. So one important lesson I learned is that when you're working in a team, working well with others is what gets you to deliver results. And when you're working in a team, it's focusing on solving the problem. And I think Dima said it in a different way, but it's thinking outside the box and focusing on solving the problem to the issue and not looking back and trying to place blame. It's working together. For example, mistakes happen, issues arise, and it's really coming in the room and, not trying to blame people, but identifying the root cause. It's really important to identify the root cause of what happened, but get to the facts and move on, and then work on the solution. It creates a positive atmosphere of working together, and it prevents focusing on negative feelings of who's to blame, and even if it's blaming others. So that positive feeling contributes to a sense of a team, a sense of working together, and it can really deliver powerful results.
So you've stayed with your current company for over a decade, which, not to date you, but that means a lot in today's marketplace. What are the key attributes of the company culture that you think would make you want to stay that long and invest that much time into an organization?
That's a good question. I ask that myself sometimes. No, all joking aside, really it's the Leviton culture. Leviton is privately owned. It's been privately owned for over 100 years. It was started with a cart selling lamp holders in Brooklyn. And Leviton, as a company, really values their employees. So no, I heard the panelists earlier today, we're facing out, new challenges and mitigated challenges, and companies are having to cut costs. And I'm proud to say that Leviton has not done any layoffs. They've not done any furloughs, and they're really taking care of their employees and made it possible for us to work remotely. We also have a great work-life balance, and that's not to be underestimated, especially for working moms. And I really feel good about it when I'm assigning work, that I'm able to have my team work hard, deliver results, but at the end of the day, be able to go and be with their family. And I think that's really important, especially for female leaders and females in general. And as overall also, just kind of on me personally, I've been promoted 3 times at Leviton. I've gotten the chance to work in different departments: logistics, planning, business analytics and simulation. And I've gotten to lead some really exciting projects that are cross-functional, that are not just within the supply chain, and manage diverse backgrounds, diverse interests, and diverse skill sets. So the work has kept me very interested, and one of the reasons that I've stayed. And I think finally, as my husband reminds me on a daily basis, I'm married to a diehard Long Islander who refuses to leave. So that may have something to do with it too.
Sometimes that's what it is, right? Thank you so much. And now finally we go to Patty in sunny Arizona. I hope it's sunny today. Patty, interesting word you chose. How is that descriptive of your leadership journey?
So I chose the word invested, and what that really means to me is a couple things. First, whether it's a 6-month project, a 10-year strategy, or a 1-hour meeting, if I'm showing up and putting my time against that, I'm 100% present. I have some experience to bring to the table there to affect the quality of the outcome, and I'm going to do that if I'm involved. The other side of invested for me is invested in the people. So you have to make the time to get to know the people in your organization, to bring relationships beyond the transactional. And I think if you are invested in both of the ways I talked about, in the people as well as the work, understanding the work, recognizing the work, knowing what it takes, knowing what to ask for, I think you put those two things together and you've built a foundation of trust in the organization where you can set strategic direction and people follow you because you know the work. You get people's support because they know you have their back, and it allows them to be more courageous in their individual roles. And it's much easier to be an inclusive leader then, because it's very, very authentic, because you are invested in the business and the people, and can speak from a place that's a lot of truth. I will give 2 quick examples on invested in my leadership journey. The first was very, very early on in my career. I was living overseas and I was in a sales role. And I did not like the role. I did not like being a sales rep. But I came in every day with something to give and something to learn. And I was invested in that, even though I wasn't very good at it. Let's be completely clear. In less than a year, my managing director asked me to start a spin-off company for them. So I was 25, looking for office space, building a business plan, and figuring out who I was going to hire. But I think it was not because I was good at sales, but because I was invested in, the outcome of the company and that role. Then fast forward, as I moved into the role that I'm in now, and you mentioned earlier, I did a short stint as an HR director and then was asked to take the logistics role. So I didn't grow up in the logistics business. I didn't know the people, and I didn't know the business. So what did I do? I invested in getting to know the people personally. I rolled up my sleeves and started to really understand the work, ask the questions, recognize the experts, make them feel good about the years that they've spent in the business and that they could teach me. And I tried to figure out what I could give to that as well. So I knew the customers really well, so I could remove obstacles. I come from a financial analysis background. That was not this team's strength. So I brought that skill to the table. So I threw myself in. I invested really hard and really heavy on the work side and the people side. And 12 years later, we're $500 million business with 200 people, which is 3 times what it was when I started. So those are my examples of invested.
Amazing. Such a great roadmap for growing your career. That's very inspirational. The next question I wanted to ask is around succession planning. We talk a lot about this, in our daily corporate lives, but for you, it has a special, deeper meaning, doesn't it? So can you talk about to us about the legacy you're building at G3?
Yeah, so what Elena is referring to is I'm actually leaving G3 at the end of the year purposefully to hopefully take a different journey, an encore decade is what I'm calling it. So for me, when I think about legacy, and it's kind of a weird and scary word a little bit, But when I first walked into the role that I'm in now, there was not the people, process, or technology to ultimately achieve what we needed as a business, nor was there a strategic plan. So I've spent my time building all of that along with my team. And so for me, and I have lots of confidence that this legacy will exist, for me, it's about, is that organization strong enough, which has a lot to do with succession planning, to deliver the growth in the next 10 years that we need to, while improving the capabilities over time to over deliver for our customers and to make the jobs internally more interesting for people over time. And so that's what I hope happens. That's what I expect to happen. I think everything's in place to make that happen. And so the question is probably, why do I feel that way? And for me, that really comes back to how I view HR as a discipline, succession planning, people planning, organizational design, organizational development. For me, that is a core part of what I do every day. And what I work to do is make sure that that is a core part of all leaders in my organization. So if a team leader has an open position, are they thinking about, how do I hire someone better than myself? If you've got a manager where something isn't working, are they figuring out how to solve it? Are they coming up with where they're short on capacity or where they don't have the right capability? And are they coming up with designs that could help influence that? So succession planning to me is about bringing the people and organizational part of the conversation to be a core part of what you do from a business perspective every single day. And so I think that brings the depth of the organization that you need to create a strong foundation. And I just want to comment specifically on women and men on this discussion as well, because I think it's important. So lots of folks ask me, how do you bring more females into the organization? What is the secret sauce? How does that happen as a female leader? And frankly, I think the law of numbers works. So you need to hire the female in a leadership role, and their network will hire more women over time than it will hire, right? The other gender. And that just happens. I've seen it happen. So my first hire in this role 13 years ago was a female. I don't have data, but I know she's brought in more females over time that have ascended to leadership roles over time. And so I think that is incredibly important. And then on the male side of things, as we think about succession, as we think about culture, et cetera, I hope, that the men who are leaders in my organization and in my organization just generally, they over time have become much more comfortable being their authentic selves when they need to be vulnerable about something, when they need to ask for help about something. They are very comfortable talking about balance and asking for balance in their own lives. They're very comfortable being empathetic. They're fantastic leaders and managers and they run the business and all those things. But I believe that the culture we've created has helped them, lean in more on some of the traits that may be more traditionally female. And I think that that's incredibly important as part of the entire, the entire diversity discussion, solution, equality discussion, et cetera, is to make sure that men are leaning in as well.
Great, thank you. Now, Patty, you stayed with G3 for a significant chunk of time as well, helping, I'm sure, shape some of the policies and procedures. So I'm going to ask you a question that we actually got from our own organization as we were preparing for this conversation, specifically from some of the junior folks, women on our team, and they were basically asking, so how can we as employees extend these, encourage our employer and extend these remote privileges or, support work-life balance and this remote culture when the pandemic is over?
I think it's a great question, but I'm not going to answer it from a policy and procedure perspective. I'm going to answer it from a culture perspective, because I think if you build culture on policies and procedures, you haven't built a culture at all. I think the culture you build affects the policies and procedures. And so I'm going to talk about it that way. So the bit of advice that I would give everyone, men, women, it doesn't matter, is have a relationship with the person that you report to that gets you comfortable enough saying, I'm going to coach soccer this fall. I'm leaving on Wednesday at 4 o'clock every week. My calendar's going to be blocked. Be comfortable having that conversation and be comfortable having it beyond your leader, with your peers, with other people. We are all professionals. We know how to manage our work. If we don't get our work done, people know how to manage us out. And so I think you need to have the confidence to create the culture around you individually that will grow to others, that truly reflects how you show up as your best self, both at work and at home. And a lot of that has to do with time boundaries, right? Removing traditional time boundaries or traditional where you work boundaries. So I think that conversation is incredibly important. And lots of people are probably saying, holy cow, I don't have that relationship with my boss. I could never say that. And I will be ostracized, right? I was listening to a podcast this morning. This was just random coincidence. And it was a professor from Purdue on a Harvard Business Review podcast. And she said that before the pandemic and during the pandemic, they interview both managers and employees about how open is the manager to supporting balance. 100% of managers said they are good at it and they support it. 50% of employees said their managers are good at it and support it. So what I will tell you is people in leadership positions now know, not just because of the pandemic, but they recognize that it is socially unacceptable not to be supportive of work-life balance. And so don't assume, right, that they are going to say no, that they are going to ostracize you. And quite frankly, if they do, I think the shame ultimately is going to be on them. Not 100% of the time, but I think you go in with that expectation. My last piece here, and I have to say this because I think this is so incredibly important, is when we talk about balance, men in the organizations need balance too. So find the man in the organization who's leaving every Wednesday at 4 o'clock to go and coach soccer and make sure that they are talking about it as well. They are blocking their calendar and they are talking about how they're managing their life in order to create the balance that they need personally. And make sure that if you have male employees eligible for paternity leave, that they take paternity leave. I think that is the great equalizer in a word, paternity leave next to maternity leave. It's no longer a stigma that just women take leave after a child. The more we can support those types of things and bring men into doing the same things that women are doing from a family perspective, a life perspective, a balance perspective, the more powerful it will be in total.
Sounds amazing. Now I'm going to switch gears just a little bit and just go around the Zoom and talk a little bit about networking. You know, up to this point or up to February or March, anytime anybody would talk about how you grow in your role, in your career, networking would come up, you know, in person, in your company, outside the company, at all these events that people would encourage us to attend. Find a coach, find a mentor within your company. All of these things are just kind of been ripped away from us right now, right? And so we get this question from our own team. I get this question from myself. How do we do this, right? Like in this new reality where we can't see each other face to face, we can't go to a networking event, and Zoom is, you know, we're doing okay. Obviously, we weren't doing very well in the beginning of this call, but we're doing okay now. But this is not exactly the same thing. So I want to go quickly around the room and see if you guys have any advice on how do you network in these days and how do you look for these coaches. So Dima, if you want to kick us off again, that would be great.
Sure. I think for me personally, I actually have found that this has been helpful being in these environments where we can actually get some one-on-one time with undivided attention. Being able to schedule meetings within your organization, clear 30-minute window or 15-minute window where you've got a specific topic that you can speak to. But I really think it's important to lean into your existing network and have those conversations, whether it's about your career, internal progress within your role, et cetera. to really ask the questions, you know, to that person, but also who in your network would you recommend me speaking to? Who could you introduce me to that could potentially give me better insight or give me direction and what I'm looking for? Or is there somebody else in a different organization, let's say we're talking about sales, that you know, you think could benefit from this? So starting a business, you know, you're kind of on your own, you're not looking internally, but really how do you grow your network? And part of that is continuing to push on your existing network to get those introductions and ask for the time. And I actually think people are more willing today to schedule those meetings than they may have been before, because, you know, they're already confined to their jobs between, you know, the hours of 9 to 5, and you have to look for their after hours, which is a tough ask when you've got other things going on. So I would not shy away for asking for a meeting, even with, you know, your direct manager or other people within the organization, and ask for those introductions, because I think it will provide more benefit than you may have imagined prior.
Great, thank you. Anita, any thoughts on remote networking and mentors?
I think she might have fallen off, Elena. She's trying to get back on, so let's jump through to someone else.
Oh, yeah, sorry, didn't see that. Yeah, let's just go to Anya then in New York.
Well, sure. I mean, in a normal year, I find supply chain conferences like CSCMP, which is the Council of Supply Chain Management Professionals, to be immensely helpful in networking and meeting people in the industry, people, suppliers, providers, customers, but also building out your network. I did attend it via Zoom. It was a little bit tricky this year because I think we missed out on some of the after session networking events, which I find to be the most helpful. But in the remote world, to me, it's incredibly important to have a mentor within the organization that you can reach out to and go to when you need advice. You really should have that one person that, how do I manage this situation? How do I deal with this person, or that person that can advise you on it. And also it's important to be your own best salesman. I think we don't do that enough as women. No one can sell you better than you can. No one knows your brand better than you can. And you got to speak up and be noticed and be heard, participate. In the remote world, that means your mic should work, because if your mic doesn't work, you're not in the meeting. And if you can, sometimes it's difficult to hop on the video calls because we don't always have, sometimes we're in our sweats and we don't always have our hair or makeup done perfectly, but it's important to be on video and be seen and be heard. And when you're selling yourself, that could be on LinkedIn or professional Slack groups or internally to your company. Again, just try to participate, present your results, and be seen and be heard. Sell yourself.
Sounds good. Thank you. Anita, I see you're back on. Awesome. Same question. Any thoughts on networking, mentors, coaches, any personal success?
Sure, yeah. And sorry, I had a power shut down all of a sudden. So, and I am sorry if I repeat what Dima or Anya say, but yeah, I completely agree that this is a very important topic, and especially in the era that we are in, we got to get creative about how we network. Fortunately, I've had a good base of mentors who've helped raise me up so far. And when I think about online networking, LinkedIn seems like the best place that I've seen most successes with people reaching out, or, one thing I've realized is there's a lot of people who are willing to help. We just need to ask. And as women, we hesitate to ask. And I think if we can change that mindset, I'm going to say this, hope it doesn't sound awkward. It's almost like online dating, but not as exciting as online dating. But you have some needs from a career growth standpoint. You're trying to figure out who that person is that can help you with that. So stay focused on what you want to get out of your career. I heard the last part of what Anya said. Yeah, you are, your best critic, your best marketer. You really need to figure out what is it that you want out of your life. And if that's something you're going after, try to stay focused. But yeah, can't emphasize enough about networking, though. It's always great to learn about a new culture, new different things that help you. We're currently running a bid in Latin America. I almost have a translator, but I had to create that relationship with her to be, very comfortable and be able to execute a very successful Latin American bid. So I think it helps you from a work, but also from a career and moving forward with results. Networking is the way. Go slow to go fast is what I call it.
Thank you.
That's all I had.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. And Patty, I bet you find yourself on the flip side of this a lot when you are coaching and you're mentoring. Care to share any success stories on that end?
Sure, I will. I want to share one quick thing on networking, and then I'll do the mentor piece. So I completely agree with Anita. I have found during COVID, people more gracious and generous with their time than before, because 30 minutes on a Zoom feels easy and natural to people, whereas before it was this meeting and are we going to talk on the phone? I don't know. So for me, it has been super easy to keep networking. I often find people go to events and people are thinking networking's done because we don't have events, but it's the follow-up after the events that is the true networking piece of it. And I think the follow-up is easier now than it was before to stay connected with people because everybody is doing so much remotely. So I would encourage folks to think of it as a new platform instead of an obstacle. From a mentor perspective, I have mentored lots of people, but I'm actually going to answer the question more as a mentee. So one of my most powerful group of mentors over time has been my female professional friends. So as they have ascended in organizations, and lots of them are in HR, so I have a benefit of them being technically trained, right, to give me feedback. But from a friend perspective, I would encourage you to look at that network, especially as you ascend, as being one of the best mentor groups you can find, because they will tell it to you like it is. And they will use vocabulary and allow you to laugh about it when you need really hard coaching or you need to be pushed to go after an opportunity. So that has been one of the, later in my career, probably the strongest network for sure, and mentor group that I've used. And I think it can be really powerful if you think of it that way.
Sounds amazing. Thank you. Awesome conversation. We're coming up on time. So last question around the Zoom, and it's kind of similar to what Marissa asked in the first panel, but I think it's so impactful. Basically, I think everybody who's listening wants to know, how did you do it? Like at which point did you know I can do this? I'm good enough. I'm great, and I can do it. So basically, whatever you think you yourself back then in the beginning of a career would want to hear on a Zoom like this, would love to hear those parting thoughts from you. And Dima, we'll start with you again. Thank you.
I stumbled upon this industry. It was not an industry I was familiar with by any means. But when I got into it, I started to get passionate about the industry and what we were trying to solve. I think that, do something you're passionate about. If you're in a role you're not excited about, explore what other opportunities may be within your organization or another organization. But you should be excited. You should be excited to get to work, excited to do something that you could see yourself growing into as a career. I think for me, I had an opportunity to start with early stage companies where I had the ability to work cross-functionally and try different roles and take initiative on different projects that weren't necessarily like siloed in one particular role. And that gave me the opportunity to really figure out what I wanted to do and push to get there. So if you're in that point in your career and you're not sure, like, is this for me? Am I excited? Get out there, take some risks, explore what else is, in that company. And that's part of having those conversations and networking and exploring. But don't just sit there and hope for it to change or be handed to you. You really have to work for it and push to achieve that.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Anita, we'll go to you now.
Awesome. Thank you, Elena. I think if I had to, listen to this a few years ago, I wish somebody had told me never give up. And they also had told all the men around the room to never let me give up, right? So to all the men around the room today, if there are any, I'm telling you, never let her give up. And to all the women, never give up. I definitely would like to share a few tips that I picked along the way. One, be vulnerable, be yourself. You know, there's no shame in being yourself. You don't have to be perfect. I think this was said, and you are absolutely enough for the job that, you know, you're doing or you're aspiring to do. Take credit for your work is another big one on my list always. Like, you know, we hesitate. It's always as women, we are like, oh, this person helped me do it. No, you were the primary person. The reason why this is done today is because of you. So stand there in the room and proudly take credit for it. The third piece is own your well-being. There's so much happening around. We have a pandemic, racial injustice, once in a lifetime election, like I call it. And your life is happening on a day-to-day basis. So there's so much around you that you need to take care of and people around you. So own that. Show up every day, whatever those challenges are. Don't give up. Again, show up every day with a smile and an attitude that you can do it. And the last one I had is enjoy the journey. You get one life, what you're passionate about. If you don't like this, quit and do something that you love. This here said it, we love our jobs. We are happy that we are doing what we are doing, but we all should be there. There's no reason why we shouldn't be there. We're all very fortunate in our mothers, aunts, grandmas, whoever, you know, in our lives, the women who have lived before us. So let's make this better for the next generation. Something, these were some, yeah, I wish I needed a lot of advice. You can see, Alina. So I think that's really what I would say.
That is awesome. Thank you so much. Anya, what are your parting thoughts for us?
Well, to echo a lot of the commentary that was made by the panelists, and it kind of something that I struggle with and try to overcome is you're worthy, and even if you know 50% of the job, you can go for it and you will learn the rest when you're there. I think Jackie in the previous panel said 25%.
Yes.
I'd feel a little bit more comfortable with 50, but I think that's what we do as women is we want to be 100% ready, 100% right. And that's not what men do. They typically apply for a job if they have 50% of the application. So I like that message of you are ready, you are worthy of it. And then when you do get the role, never stop learning. I think that's a concept that I always apply on my daily basis, mostly because I'm a nerd and I enjoy learning. But it never stop learning because it keeps you fresh and it keeps you as a leader in your industry.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Patty.
Okay, so there's two phrases that encompass what everybody else has already said that I love. One is you are enough, just like you are right now, you are enough. The other one is be brave, not perfect. I think that's incredibly powerful. And what I'll leave folks with is what I wish I had known in the 15-year-old Patty, or pick whatever, many years ago Patty you want. So I think I really started to excel as a leader when I had gone through sort of Gallup Strengths Finder or Belbin team roles or 5 Dynamics, some of these sort of, personality, if you want to call them personality type of things. When I started to get a vocabulary and be proud of my strengths and be able to laugh and display my weaknesses and recognize them openly. And so I think if we could give every 15-year-old girl the vocabulary to talk about what their strengths are and to be comfortable that they have weaknesses and opportunities, that is what I would give everyone. So for those of you that are listening, if you aren't comfortable talking about your 3 strengths in a 1-word descriptor, go figure out what those are and be super proud of them.
Amazing. Thank you so much. And thank you to all the panelists. I'm throwing it back to Emily to wrap us up, and we're almost on time.
You guys were awesome. Very authentic. The transparency was fantastic. Thank you guys so much. For me specifically, I always listen to these things and I try to take away, which I'm hoping the whole audience is doing too. But I think it's very important, sell yourself. No one knows your brand like you do. That's really important. Take credit for your work. That's such a crucial thing here, I think, especially in an environment like our own, where it's, you know, people working together, but who's really doing the work. Never stop learning. I love that. And then the most important thing I took away specifically was, you know, make time to make the interactions impactful. I think right now we're all trying to stay connected. We're all trying to be part of the group, but we can't inspire our team, or we can't be inspired if we're not connected. So hopefully that's what these two panels did today. Hopefully everyone feels really inspired. We're so thankful. You guys did an awesome job. The first panel is fantastic as well. So, you know, if anyone has questions or have any comments, and again, thank you everyone for being very patient with us as we try to work through these Zoom calls. You know, we're still learning, we're still trying to navigate through this. So hopefully everyone has a fantastic day, and thank you guys again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.